interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 111 of Vikings Uncensored. As you may have noticed, we did another update to the intro. We're going to call ourselves officially into season 3 now. So
111, 3 1s, season 3.
Yeah, it's perfect. I mean, yeah. Well, you know. So yeah, we got a little bit of news coming up this week, league meetings and whatnot. A bunch of stuff came out of that. Vikings also having the first of their organized team activities this week. We'll hit a few highlights there. And then we'll hit part 2 of our Meet the Rookies segments, looking this week at safety/cornerback Jay Ward and defensive lineman Jaquelin Roy. Along with that, we'll just throw in whatever stuff we decide to throw in and our normal shenanigans and assorted bullshit. So with that, let's get started. How about that? Starting off with the spring league meetings actually held in Minnesota this time.
Wow. Good old Minnesota, don't you know? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you know. Several things come out of this, actually, some new rules and some good, some I don't necessarily agree with, but the first thing to pop out was kind of what we'll call the San Francisco 49ers rule, where the owners have approved having a third quarterback active on the rosters on game day without counting against the
They had this at one time as well, but
they used to have it, and then they went away from it because they were allowed to have an extra player instead of the 46th guy being the third quarterback.
A couple instances last year where that would have came in pretty handy for some teams.
Right, and none more significant than the NFC Championship game when Brock Purdy was forced to come back in for San Francisco with a torn tendon in his arm, so he couldn't even throw the ball more than like 5 or 6 yards because was it Josh Johnson, who was their third string quarterback, got a concussion and couldn't come back in.
Yep.
So that player will not count against the active roster for game days, but I do believe it's kind of back to the old rule. If that third quarterback comes in, the other two are not eligible to return.
And whatever.
Yeah, but I mean, it still allows you to keep a third quarterback.
Exactly.
And it doesn't.
It's beneficial to a lot of these young quarterbacks coming into the league now because they can be active for games then.
Well, and the Vikings themselves, that this is beneficial because there may have been a decision that would have to be made at the end of training camp, whether we keep Nick Mullins or Jaron Hall or try to move one to the practice squad or whatever. This new ruling, I believe, will allow them to keep 3 quarterbacks without having a problem with it. So that it helps us out.
You'll be able to have 54 people on your roster in one day.
Yeah, you'll have the normal 53 The 54th being a third-string quarterback who does not count unless you have to bring him into the game.
Okay. Which would eliminate the other 2 quarterbacks then from the roster.
Right. From what I understand, yes, which is the way the old rule used to work. If your third quarterback came in, your first 2 couldn't come back. So
yeah, that was back in the early 2000s and shit.
Yeah, it was a thing for years. I remember, back in the 80s and 90s.
And we utilized it as a Vikings organization and the team. We did.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you look back in those, the late 80s to early 90s stuff, you had Kramer, you had Wade Wilson, you had Rich Gannon, Sean Salisbury, all those guys that jumped back and forth. And then the second new rule type thingy, whatever, that the league approved was the next 2 are actually just a 1-year tryout thing. The league.
Just a roll of paper towels on me.
No, I didn't even notice, but okay. The quicker picker upper.
Right.
Bounty,
I'm not trying to sponsor anything.
Bounty, if you want to sponsor Vikings Uncensored, email me at chargingrhinomedia@gmail.com and we can figure it out.
We'll start wearing flannels.
Right. But anyway.
Never mind.
Yeah. Hey, I got a lot of flannels in my closet. We can do that.
Right on.
The league.
Sport the mustache.
That might take a while. This is 3 days worth of growth here. So
that's just the George Michael got going on there.
Yeah.
The 5 o'clock shadow.
No, it's about a 3:30 shadow actually, but
All right, back on this.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch. Back to item number 2 passed at the league meetings. The league approved flexing Thursday night games starting with week 13, with a caveat that the league has to give 28 days notice to be able to flex, which
all this fucking stipulational bullshit's almost as bad as Kevin O'Connell's offensive playbook last year during the championship game.
But I don't
I'm
like
kidding,
this.
Kevin, I'm kidding. No disrespect.
We love you, Kevin. Don't.
Yeah.
I don't like this rule personally. The
scheduling shit's starting to get out of hand, dude. Is what I'm getting at.
The Sunday to Sunday night thing is fine because you're dealing with 4 hours worth of time frame.
I could see flexing or something like that, but then but moving a game to Thursday night.
And Lloyd Christmas, aka Mark Davis, the Las Vegas Raiders owner, made a good point, and so did John Mara from the Giants. If you are scheduled to have a Thursday night game, all these fans that are buying tickets to come to a Thursday night game and this, that, and the other thing, a lot of fans may be traveling from out of town. And then you do that, and all of a sudden is, oh, I'm sorry, you're not playing on Thursday anymore. You're going to play here on Sunday. That's another 3 days. That's another 3 days that these people are going to have to either get hotel rooms or, figure out other travel arrangements, change plane tickets, do all this other stuff, or just say, screw it, sell their tickets and not go. For the TV audiences, it doesn't matter. Let's be honest. It doesn't matter there. And that's where the league makes most of their money is through the TV deals.
People want to talk about these players being money hungry. It's all about the fucking owners and fucking the logo, the shield.
It is, but I believe that I know it takes 24 owners to pass a rule or regulation like this. And I think that's all they got for this one was 24. And it's a 1-year trial.
You need to be told I think a certain period of time beforehand that
you have to be alerted 28 days ahead of time. Okay, well, a team could be in the hunt 28 days early, and by the time you get to that 28 days, they might not be. So, okay, we're going to flex. Just for example, let's say Pittsburgh and Baltimore rivalry game. we're going to flex that to a Thursday night because it's a rivalry game. They're both fighting for the playoffs. Well, in that 28 days, let's say Lamar Jackson gets hurt again and Baltimore loses 3 of the next 4 games. So all of a sudden they go from fighting Pittsburgh for the division lead to being 4th place in the division because Lamar Jackson is out, and then you still have a shitty game because
we're gonna have a game every day of the fucking week pretty soon.
We'll get to that point. If the league thinks they can make money off it, they will do that.
Like
we all know that. But yeah, I don't like this. I don't like this rule. They can only flex 2 Thursday night games though, I think, so that minimizes it. But it's basically 2 out of 4 games.
My brain hurts, Rhino.
Yeah. But anyway, moving on to the third one, another one that I don't really care for, and this was opposed by 32 of the 32 special teams coordinators.
Yeah, they're not very happy about this.
But I was also told that this was one of the brainchilds of Roger Goodell, and he would not give it up. They passed a new rule saying that all fair catches on kickoffs will come out to the 25-yard line, basically the college rule, where you can be standing at the 10-yard line on a kickoff, call fair catch, you get the ball at 25. It was unanimously opposed by the special teams coordinators, but passed. This, I don't like the rule because it does minimize.
A lot of guys depend on that position to make their fucking money.
Well, you look at a guy like Kene Nwangwu, for instance.
Exactly.
I mean, his bread and butter has been to this point kickoff returns. Cordero Patterson,
Devin Hessler's that used to be in the game.
All these guys.
Dante Hall was another.
Cordero Patterson, Hall. So many of these guys that made their bread and butter off of being a kick returner. Now,
Marcus Sherrills.
Sure, Sherrills is punt returns, but that's
special teams.
Yeah, but this is kickoffs. So this is kickoffs only. It's not.
They're already starting to come after kickoffs. It's not only a matter of time before punt returns are going to be fiddled with.
Well, and they're doing this all in the name of player safety. I mean, I could be wrong on this, but at least perception-wise, I don't see an overabundance of injuries on kickoffs
really
that they're
that much of a big. Is it really that? Is there really that many injuries? As they say,
I mean, compared to regular offensive and defensive play, is the special teams really that much different that it warrants this kind of stuff? I don't think it is.
I mean, why change when it seems like the rule that we have in place right now seems to be doing just fine?
Yeah, I mean, I get player safety. I'm all for player safety. I don't want to see these guys getting, their bell rung so many times that by the time they're 40 years old, they're wearing a bicycle helmet and drooling the rest of their lives.
People are questioning whether or not he has, with him getting his bell rung like he did in the league, if that made him change his attitude and personality.
Right. I mean, all that stuff, all that, traumatic brain injuries and all that stuff. I mean, it's all a thing. We know that, but a lot of this stuff comes from the regular play of the game itself, not just because you were a special teams player.
Right. And eliminating the wedge play on the special teams was huge.
That I'm okay with. But this kickoff thing, I mean, pretty soon they're just going to say, okay, when the other team scores, the other team gets the ball at 25-yard line. We're not going to kick off. We're not going to do anything.
Like I said, I feel bad for the specialists that rely on that position, that make their payday on that.
Mm-hmm. Well, case in point, and we mentioned Kene Nwangwu. If they're going to minimize the kick returner position that much, there's a possibility he doesn't make the roster this year.
Exactly.
But
And he's just one example on the entire league of 32.
Yeah, one of many. Every team has that guy who, could potentially be affected by this role.
I could totally understand why special teams coordinators would be upset and the players at those positions.
Yep. I don't like it, but this is another one of those 1-year deals, so it's not set in stone for all of eternity. But we'll see how it plays out. But like I said, I mean, and to me, watching
we're bitching about nothing, but
watching the college game, it always seems weird to me that when you see kicking it out into the end zone, okay, that's fair catch. That's been that way forever. But you see a guy standing at the 12-yard line and doing this and like, okay, you're going to take the ball at the 12. No, you get it at the 25. Oh,
yeah.
Okay, I guess, but whatever. I don't like the rule, but
I don't agree with it either.
I'm not an owner. I don't have billions of dollars, and I don't get to vote on this stuff, so they don't care what I have to think. So, but that's the main stuff that came out of that league meeting from this week. Regular Vikings news. The Vikings on Monday, I believe it was, waived outside linebacker / edge rusher Kenny Willekes and signed former XFL wide receiver from the DC Defenders, Lucky Jackson.
What a name. I love it.
Yeah.
I feel bad for Willekes, but in truth and honesty, the dude couldn't stay healthy, and he was, a lot of people talked about his size at the position that he played. So
I was a Kenny Willekes fan. When he was healthy, I thought the guy had potential.
But he's one of those guys that can't stay on the field for.
Yeah, he's been on the team for 3 years and played 6 games.
Yeah. Yep.
So hopefully he can catch it.
Jackson guy a look. His name is Lucky. So come on, dude.
Apparently, we're lucky to get him. So maybe we'll get lucky and he'll pan out. I don't know.
He was decent in he was one of the standouts in the XFL. And he's a speedster. So
yeah,
I'm open to see what kind of talent anybody has.
Yeah, I think with him, practice squad's probably best case scenario, but
likely,
he might surprise somebody. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, then of course, other than the league meetings, OTAs started this week, starting on Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday having a day off. Of course, we're recording on Wednesday here, so we'll have the first 2 days. Little notes here. Then Thursday, Friday, I believe Saturday is the second chunk of this. So you'll see that some of that will have happened by the time you see the show on Friday. But some quick hits from the first 2 days. Lewis Seen looks to be back at probably 120% from what everything has been heard. Heard comments from several people that says he looks even more explosive now than he was during training camp last year.
Early season talk.
It is.
But that's a good way of saying, you know what, this kid's ready to go.
But he's 8 months removed from a severe break to his ankle, and
practicing.
He's full go. He has no restrictions. He is ready to roll. Which
he made about the defense.
What was that?
About how championship defenses practice like championship teams practice like championship teams or whatever.
Right. And since you brought up the defense, that's the biggest key that has been taken away from the first 2 days of OTAs. Brian Flores has this defense flying all over the field.
Lots of moving pieces. From what I've been told.
3 of the terms that were thrown out by offensive players were crazy, exotic, and intense as far as what the defense has been throwing at them. KJ Osborne came out and said, what we're seeing out of this defense 2 days into OTAs, He said what we're seeing out of this defense two days into OTAs, he said it would take us an entire week of game prep during the season to even get remotely ready for this. Christian Darrisaw.
Did a quote along those lines too about
Christian Darrisaw, and this is a paraphrase because I didn't write it all down, but he said, we never saw anything like this last year. He said, we never prepared for any of this during the week of what we would see in the game. Flores was throwing everything at him, 3-4, 4-3, all this other stuff. There was.
I want that multiple defense. I want that multiple formations where you can be at least good at everything you throw at them.
Yep. There was a couple of times, I don't know if it was Monday or Tuesday, but they lined up in that zero blitz formation that Flores has kind of been famous for. And
he's not afraid to let his balls hang out. That's for sure.
And when they did that and they unleashed the beast, Kirk just drops back and just slammed the ball into the ground because the rush was just gonna kill him.
Those youngsters, man, they're hungry, and a lot of them have something to prove. They do.
Yeah. And they're moving guys all over.
Something to prove, to be honest with you.
Right, they're moving guys all over the field. Now there were a few veterans that did not show up for the first, at least Monday. Media was not allowed in on Tuesday, so we don't know who was there, who wasn't.
Too, so there's that.
Right, but the guys that weren't there, Dalvin Cook, obviously, for reasons that we've discussed. We've discussed. If you don't know why, go back and check out Rhino's rant from Monday. I had a whole show on that. Danielle Hunter, who is still in search of a new contract, was not there.
Justin, who with his resume is going to play for that price?
Right. Justin Jefferson was not there, which surprised a few people, and of course,
he even reached out to KJ and said, "You know what? Don't worry about it." KJ basically said that he had talked to Justin, and Justin said, "You know what? Everything's cool. Everything's good.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. I'll be there." I'm
not concerned about Jefferson not being there. Some people are trying to, throw the 5-gallon pail of gasoline on the fire and make this a bigger deal than it is. But it's not a big deal. Harrison Smith also was not there, as well as Jordan Hicks. So I
think he was there day 2. I'm pretty sure that's Jordan Hicks in the video.
Yeah, but day 1 he wasn't. Day 1 he wasn't there. Then of course Brian O'Neill still rehabbing that Achilles. He was not practicing, but he was there. Trey McBride also not participating yet because he's got that hamstring injury. He's working himself back from, but he was
dude looking good too. Excuse me.
Murphy didn't do a whole lot the first or day 1, but sounds like day 2. Same thing with Jordan Addison and Harrison Phillips didn't do a whole lot the first day, but this is the first set of OTAs.
Yeah,
they're moving guys in and out. You look around the league, there's a lot of places where their number 1 guys maybe weren't there, and they were running with the 2s and the 3s in a lot of these positions and stuff. So people trying to make mountains out of molehills here, and oh my God, Justin Jefferson's not here. He's unhappy. He wants to be traded. Blah 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 blah. All that fucking shit that we're gonna hear. Just chill.
With any superstar player though that doesn't show up to a voluntary workout later on in the contract, that's the alarm bells go off everywhere. And
we all know Justin Jefferson is going to get a new contract.
His character speaks for itself, and he's going to be here. He knows he's going to get paid at some point. He's been quoted as saying, "You know what? The money will come."
Right. And when you get to the mandatory, I assume he's going to show up at some point for the option or the voluntary stuff. But when it comes to mandatory minicamp, he'll be here.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and if not, that's when you start bringing up.
Yeah, then the question marks, and I believe Dalvin Cook will be gone by then, so we won't.
Yeah,
that won't be an issue.
I do too. I think after post June 1st.
June
I think
1st, what's today's the 25th, so
We're going to know in a week right now. I believe in a week we'll know what's going on with that.
Basically, a week we'll know what's going on with that. Basically, a week from now, the window opens, and I believe Dalvin Cook is gone. Within 2 weeks, Dalvin Cook is no longer on this roster.
Right. And if we're lucky, we'll get compensation.
Right. But that's most everything from OTAs that we've seen so far anyway. I'm excited as hell about the words coming out about the defense. I made this comment in our Gallerhorn group on Facebook that we were part of, when we were talking about the defense from last year versus this year. I said straight out, I said, Brian Flores, just himself, no players, no nothing. Brian Flores is worth 7 to 10 positions in defensive ranking from last year.
And you know what? This is what I believe this is originally what KOC wanted to see last year out of his defense when he brought in Donatel. But
it's just that Donatel completely shit the bed, and
he didn't have the intestinal fortitude to do what Flores will do.
No. And Flores just whips his dick out on the table and says, "Fuck you guys, here we come."
Fortitude, excuse me. Intestinal.
Hey, whatever kind of fortitude Flores has it all as far as calling plays. I mean, he's never been considered a conservative play caller on a defense. So,
they say Flores' defenses start out slow because it's so complex and intricate, but once you get to mid-season, it's a swarm, dude. They're swarming. Yep. It's like a fucking hornet's nest.
Right.
So don't be surprised if the first few weeks you're like, what's going on here a little bit. I think we'll be fine. But come mid-season, that defense is going to be on another level.
I think so too. All right. But anyway, we're going to move on now to part 2 of our Meet the Rookies segment, where this week we are going to start off by looking at 4th-round pick Jay Ward, the safety out of LSU.
Safety / nickel, I believe.
Yep.
Out on the hash, and Red Rodriguez simply has to account for him.
Got some hands, and he got good awareness.
He does. And now he was listed as a safety in the pre-draft stuff, but even when the Vikings drafted him, they called him a cornerback.
Maybe he's like a bigger version of Tyrann Mathieu.
Yeah.
Like a bigger framed version of him. He does the same type of thing.
But from a lot of the stuff I'm seeing, I think Jay Ward stands a good chance of being our slot / nickel cornerback to start the year off.
Yeah.
LSU's defense.
Yep.
He's got that flexibility where
anybody's an upgrade over Sullivan, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, the kid's got some ball skills. You look at this here.
Exactly.
And
we'll talk. He's got decent size.
Yep. He's not afraid to stick his nose up in there. I mean, and you see there, he's got some Andrew Sendejo in him, I think. When you see that some of these hits he makes, and we'll talk about this when we do the scouting report here in a minute, but you watch some of this stuff, I mean, he will lay the wood. Watch this here to Bryce Young.
And scoots
from
takes a middle linebacker. They've been blitzing him all night. When you blitz, you better have somebody that can help out. But
I mean, that kid is not afraid to stick his head in there and freaking. No, that in the NFL, on a.
That was all shoulder. That was all shoulder.
Yep.
Look at that.
But the kid has a nose for the ball. He's around the ball a lot.
Flag is down at the 22 for a score.
It's like I was telling my brother last night. I mean, I feel like Kwesi felt like he had to really nail this draft, and I feel like he really put the work in this year, and that we possibly might have a draft class where we end up having 5 starters and out of the 6 players possibly. Yeah. Our rotation. Eventually down the line they'll be starting.
Right. I mean, we talked about Mekhi Becton last week.
Blackman, yeah. They might all have impacts on the defense this year.
Yeah.
In one way or another.
Like I said, we talked about Mekhi Blackman last week. I fully believe Blackman by mid-season at the worst, it's going to be a starter on the outside. I do. Just the stuff I've watched on him. But anyway, back to Jay Ward. Again, we're going to turn over to the Draft Network scouting reports. This week, Keith Sanchez does our breakdowns for both players. Here's what he had to say about Jay Ward. He said, Ward's leadership is felt through his play on the field, as he is a high motor, maximum effort player that is willing to put his body on the line on any given play. He said, although Ward is a former cornerback and maybe a future cornerback, against the run from the safety position, he has a fit. What's that?
Honey Badger. Sounds just like the Honey Badger.
Yeah, I mean, or like a Buda Baker type guy kind of thing. I mean,
Shaq Thompson.
Yep. But he said he has a physical presence that he makes full speed collisions with ball carriers. Ward does a good job of closing from distance to make plays at or near the line of scrimmage. Ward also does a good job of disputing quick plays like screens by quickly shedding blockers and getting to the ball carrier.
Showing good finesse and physicality is what it sounds like.
Yep. Ward plays with a physical presence that outweighs his actual size and body profile.
Honey Badger 2.0.
Yep. In pass coverage, Ward shows to be an instinctive player in zone. He has multiple interceptions where he did a good job of reading the quarterback's eyes to the receiver and make the interception. Ward has good range roaming the deeper portions of the field and is a player that can play as the deep free safety. In man-to-man situations, Ward does a good job of being technically sound and closing to receivers to make the tackle or deflect the pass, as we saw in that highlight reel we just played. The kid has a nose for the ball. He's got great instincts.
And both these defensive backs that we took did not think they were going to fall as far as they did. So they said, you know what? They made it known that they were not happy with where they were picked.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were expected to be picked higher. I know that for Blackman for sure. He said there's going to be every single team's going to be upset that they didn't pick me because I'm coming.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I know a lot of players say that. Let's hope it sticks. So
right. Now, on the downside with Ward, Sanchez writes, he tackles too violent sometimes and tends to absorb more of the hit himself than he does to, put it on the offensive player, which he has dealt with some injuries because of that.
That's almost in relation to the way the game is to be played now, because they protect the offensive players so much.
Right, but the thing he needs to learn, and I think Flores can probably help him with this.
Smith has learned this over the years.
Right. It's when you make that contact and deliver that punishment, you make the receiver or the back or whoever it is absorb the punishment. Don't take it on yourself.
Right.
And that can be.
Smith has learned this over the years as well, and this legal, what's legal and what's not, and what the refs expect. And
that's the thing. I think to begin the career here, he might have some of that, like I mentioned earlier, some Andrew Sandejo to him, where
if that's one of his problems, that can be corrected.
Yeah, where he's almost playing with too much of a reckless abandonment. But I believe Flores is a guy that can harness that and lead it to the right direction. So I'm kind of excited to see this kid play. Get him into training camp and preseason games and stuff like that.
2 months away, man. 2 months away.
Yeah, I mean, the snow just melted here like a month ago, and we're already talking about training camp. I mean, it's not that far away.
Talking about training camp, fucking preseason's right around the corner.
Right. But anyway, you got anything else to hit on Ward, or should we move on?
I think we hit on him pretty good. Now we can move on to the next guy at LSU. Okay,
well, but before we do that, we will hit this week's viral video of the week. So if you finished off your first cold one in the first half of the show, go grab yourself another one, crack it open, check this video out. We will be back in just a minute.
Dante Hall backing up to the 8-yard line. Dancing. Middlebrooks can't get him. Now he's back inside the 5 and finds a seam. He's gone. He's got the kicker to beat, and that's Knorr. Ladies and gentlemen, you are watching something that has never happened before in the National Football League. 7 returns for a touchdown in 10 games. Incredible!
And that ties Dante Hall with a host of others of 4 return touchdowns in a single season, and we're in week 5. There's some blocking here.
Look at this.
This is Dante Hall against all 11 Denver Broncos. And then it's just a race. I mean, incredible doesn't cover what this young man's done early this season.
Absolute jaw-dropping fashion.
All right, we're back. And now we move on to our second player in our part 2 of Meet the Rookies. Inside defensive lineman, Jaquelin Roy out of LSU. So last week we had both USC players. This week we have both LSU players.
You know what? I like what both of these. It's the physicality that both these LSU guys bring.
Yep. So we'll pop up Roy's little highlight reel here.
He looks good when he lines up right over the center. He really does. Like you were saying, he's going to be a true nose. But I think he could line up outside in a 3-4 on the line.
I would like to see him more as like a 5 tech, I think, because he's like 305 pounds or so.
That's it.
Yeah, 5 tech for sure, but a 3 tech he could do, I think. In a 3-4.
Well, yeah, in the 4-3, yeah, he'd play 3 tech, sure.
Yep.
I mean, he does play the nose, but I think somebody, more like Kiris Tonga.
Look at that. That's play alone.
Yeah, and you look at a lot of these plays. He plays the run very well, I think.
A lot of his tackles come from behind the line of scrimmage, or a lot of tackles for loss.
He gets that. There you see right there.
Yep.
So those of you guys aren't watching, he's number 99 in the video here.
Spiller looking for space.
I mean, here again, he seems to have a nose for the ball in the run game. You look at all this. I mean, most of these plays you're seeing, he's, like you said, either at the line of scrimmage or shortly, or just.
And now they're knocking on the door.
He needs to play a little bit lower. He's pad level needs to be a little bit lower.
Yeah.
And he'll pull it out and he'll run it again, diving forward, but I don't think 2nd and 9.
He does play a little high at times, and his pads could be a little bit lower, but he is an instinctual. Obviously, there's another good shot of him. It's all instincts with him.
Yeah, and he does have pass rush ability, as we just saw here. I mean, he's not one of those guys that's a true nose tackle, which is why I don't know that I want to play him there. I mean, you can rotate him in there on passing downs, maybe.
He has Linval Joseph-like size, though. I mean, it looks like.
Well, he's like 305, 310, somewhere right in there. So
305, 310-ish.
So he's not super. I mean, he's about the same size as like a Harrison Phillips or that type of player. So I think he's better suited personally to be playing on that 3-4 defensive end or a 3 tech and a 4-3 type stuff.
Yeah.
Move him to the nose on passing downs, maybe.
I think. Well, it's good that we're even having this conversation, to be completely honest with you. The fact that he could play both, I think he plays pretty well over at the center. But he could definitely play on the edge too in a 3-4.
He's not playing edge. He'd be playing the 5 tech or the defensive end.
Yeah, he wouldn't be playing linebacker on the outside, but
no. He's a defensive lineman, no matter what package you put him in.
Yes. He's not playing stand-up anywhere.
No. I don't. Like I said,
you know what? LSU ran a lot of stunts and twists too, so that's another thing they can take note of.
Right. So anyway, we'll move on to the draft write-up again on Jaquelin Roy. This again from Mr. Sanchez from over at the Draft Network.
He's angry.
He does.
Anyways, yeah, let's see what he has to say.
So let's see what Keith Sanchez has to say here. As a run defender, Roy uses his athleticism to be able to quickly get into gaps and present penetration to potentially disrupt the play. As
Exactly
we saw,
what we just seen here, yeah.
Yep, what we just saw. Roy also shows the ability to play well against zone run plays. He's got the mobility. He can get out, in those pulling guards and things like that. On plays where offensive linemen are trying to block him, he does a good job of maintaining leverage and prevents the offensive lineman from being able to reach block him and place an effective block.
Yeah, or he'll let a block slide right past him and go over the block.
Yep, he's got those, the twists, like you mentioned earlier, the twists and the spin moves.
Uses his hands very well.
Yep.
And arm length in his wingspan. He uses his arms and hands very well.
Right. That's the thing. You got to keep that guy out away from you. You let him get up into this space here, and you're screwed. You keep him out here.
Dude is strong, and that's why he play. He at the college level he can play with that pad level, but at the NFL level I question it. But the only reason he can play that high in the college is because he's got that strength.
Yeah. To
throw guys around, but at the NFL level you can't really throw your offensive linemen around as easily.
Right. So now we'll move on to the pass rushing aspect. And we got a lot of football wording in here. So he says, as a pass rusher, Roy uses his athleticism to be effective on twists and stunts. Roy is a fluid mover and can flip his hips and get into tight spaces to provide penetration. And of course,
that's what she said.
Roy also
all night, weren't you?
Yeah, well, hey, it was there. I was there. I had to put it in. Again, that's what she said. Roy also does a good job in one-on-one situations, attacking the edges of offensive linemen to attack an opening and to get pressure on the quarterback.
He's going to be a handful in one-on-one situations for sure.
Yep. But, that kind of stuff right there is why I think he's a better defensive end / 5-tech kind of guy instead of putting him at the nose tackle. Now, some of the downside stuff, there are improvements Roy can make as both a run defender and a pass rusher. As a run defender, it appears Roy needs to become more decisive and be quicker to shed offensive linemen. He appears to be delayed in his ability to deconstruct blocks, which results in him being stuck on blocks too long that can allow for offensive linemen to displace him off the line of scrimmage.
Okay.
As a pass, go ahead.
Those can be coached. Those can be coached up.
Oh, absolutely. And it's, we had this discussion a few weeks ago on our Gallerhorn group, talking about some of these guys who are raw coming in. Most of these guys coming out of college are raw in one aspect or another because just the college game is different than the NFL, and there's things you have to learn. But
a lot of the things that everybody says coming out is speed's a big thing. The speed is
yeah.
They say the college speed is fast, but I mean the NFL speed's a whole other level.
Right. And in college, okay, yes, especially playing in the SEC, like both Ward and Roy did this, this past year with LSU. You got a lot of good players there, but when you get to the NFL, everybody's at that level.
It's the best of the best, is what it is in the NFL.
Even the bad players in the NFL are at that level.
Right.
So anyway, here we're back off this. As a pass rusher, Roy needs to simply finish the rep. He will start off pass rush with a quick first step, putting himself in a good position, but it appears that he stops his momentum forward when reacting to run action fakes or quarterback movement in the pocket. So basically, he allows himself to get faked out by quarterback movement and play action kind of things.
So it sounds more like his play is like this when you need it to be more like this.
Yeah, he's got that. The potential is
high highs and his low lows, and you want him to have just
Yeah, you just need to
level
bring
those a little bit.
Bring those valleys up a little bit to even that out. And
exactly.
And again,
and you'd have some.
I believe Flores and our defensive line coach and stuff like that. I think these guys are fully capable of teaching him this stuff. His issues are nothing that can't be taught out of him, I don't think.
Well, you know what? The number one thing is he's got size.
Mm-hmm.
He's got strength. He's athletic. Let's see what we can get out of him.
Yep. And here it's again, the last sentence that in Sanchez is right up here. It says, Roy has all the physical tools to become a pass rusher on the next level, but he just needs to focus on winning his one-on-one assignments. So you get him into that spot where it seems like in some of that write-up, maybe he thinks too much when he's going through there. Where you start looking at some of the all-time greats like a Jared Allen or some of these guys like, that who are a pass rushing side of things is don't think, just go.
Yeah, and it's play with a quiet mind like KOC always says.
Right. So, but I mean, there's a lot of that stuff I think that you can probably coach out of him to get him past that and get him to that point where he can realize his true potential.
And he has said himself that he wants to learn to be great. I've seen him say that in videos that he now has on Vikings Network and shit like that. So.
Right. Yep. No, I think he's got
character guy. It seems like too.
Yeah,
he's going to be nasty on the field.
Right. So I mean, to start off with, I don't see him taking a starting job right away. We've got basically Lowry and
it's better to have a group of good athletes and professionals and not having shit at all back, when we were relying on team players that would be normally backups on other teams that were starting for our defensive line at one point.
Well, and that's been, we've talked about this, I don't know how many times on this show over the last 2+ years. My biggest gripes, and the old saying rings true. Games are won in the trenches. You need to build a team from the inside out.
Lions are huge, man.
And our defensive line has struggled over the last several years. Now, of course, we lost Dalvin Tomlinson, but getting guys in like Roy, these young guys, that was what led to the
guys had the promise too, like Etsy Adamayo. He's wanting to come in and see. He had some good game time last year at the end of the season. He put up some good film. So it's good to have these young guys that are trying to make a name for themselves in this league.
Well, and that is a lot of what led to the downfall of Rick Spielman was the fact that the guys that were in the
twilight of their career.
But some of that was due to the fact that he was failing in finding those young guys that could develop into the position where they could take over for those guys.
Or settling for guys that would normally be second team players on other teams that were starting for us on our team. Yeah.
Right. Which falls back to that Rick Spielman wet dream of someday owning every 7th round pick in the draft. I mean, the odds of you finding these guys that are going to be quality starters and people that can take over for your aging veterans in the 6th, 7th round, that percentage drops considerably, even from the 4th and 5th round.
That's why drafting is really important.
It is. And I think, I know there's a lot of people that
that's
are
why you
still
use the free agents for pieces, that you can bring them. But
right.
You rely on building your team through the draft.
You want to build and develop your own homegrown talent through the draft and everything else, and then you fill in the holes here and there with free agency.
And the other spots that you don't have that at the moment.
Right.
And for the leadership as well.
Oh, absolutely. And when you bring in these young guys that can sit and learn behind your established veterans, they can learn to be leaders from guys like Harrison Smith.
That was the first name that came to my head when I thought about leaders, for sure.
Yep. From guys like Daniil Hunter. Daniil Hunter's not a vocal guy. Harrison Smith's not a really vocal guy. But they let their play do more of the talking than actually being the boisterous kind of whatever type thing. But, and to a point that's possible, some of what's been maybe holding the defense back a little bit too over the last few years is we haven't had that.
Sure is a big thing, I believe.
Yep.
And you're going to see the influx of youth and just how much that speeds up our defense overall.
Well,
these guys are going to be flying.
Just
when you got Asamoah coming in with those fresh legs, you're going to see
Asamoah was the guy I was just going to bring up his name. When you start looking at our interior linebackers this year, the speed that's going to be brought there compared to what we had last year. And this is no slight on Eric Kendricks. I loved Eric Kendricks, but we talked about
all respect to Eric.
We talked about this last year when we found out we were going to a 3-4 defense, that we didn't think that Eric Kendricks was a good fit as a 3-4 inside linebacker. Playing in a 4-3, I think he still has a couple of good years left in him. I think he's going to have a good year in Los Angeles with the Chargers, to be honest with you. I think he's going to play well there.
He still can squeak out a few more years at that middle linebacker spot in a 4-3, for sure.
Right. But, I'm very excited. I mean, Asamoah is going to still have some bumps in the road. He's going to have some issues, but the speed that kid plays with, I'm very excited to see. And I'm calling it right now. Ivan Pace Jr. is going to make the 53-man roster.
Oh, yeah. Yep. So is Carter. He's going to make the 53 too.
I believe Andre Carter may push for a
pretty soon his roster projection.
Andre Carter may push for a starting position by the time the end of the season rolls around, especially if Marcus Davenport goes into one of his, he's kind of one of these every other year guys. If he goes every other year, this year should be a decent year for him. But if he doesn't,
he's another guy that needs to level off too.
Right. But if he struggles, I think Carter.
Oh yeah, the
could
door's
very
wide.
well be pushing for a that playing time at that position. And if we get Daniil Hunter back and happy,
don't forget about Patrick Jones II though either. Our DJ Wanham, these guys are getting this opportunity right now to do things they weren't given the opportunity to do before.
Wanham is another guy. I'm excited to see what both he and Jones can do in the Flores defense. Patrick Jones made quite a bit out of his limited opportunities last year. Wanham, again, he's played. I mean, he's coming into the final year of his contract. He's played. Right. He's been here 3 years.
This is make it or break it. He might be on the roster bubble, honestly.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a possibility he may not make the 53.
Right. There's a definite possibility he's on the bubble for sure. Yep. Bubble player. Especially like you said with Pace and Carter coming in as UDFAs, and I could almost guarantee you that they are making the 53. Those two guys,
and you still got guys like Luigi Ballon, who from last year, who didn't play all that bad. He didn't play much.
Good problem to have, dude. It's good,
right?
It's good.
And what's his name? William Kwanku. He's another one that's on the roster. Showed a flash here and there last year. There aren't any
on the bubble this year.
Jonathan Bullard is another one. Ross Blacklock. Those guys.
Those guys were guys that we picked up last year that were like those plug and play guys.
Yeah, I mean Bullard was a jag. He was just a guy. Blacklock was extremely disappointing, I think, especially for, he was a second round pick when he was drafted and he did almost nothing last year. But I think, with guys like Jaquelin Roy and some of the, we got a couple of UDFAs who brought in at the nose.
You're looking behind their shoulders because these youngins that we got coming in they're coming in force.
Yeah. I mean, at the nose, we're talking about, we've got Kiris Tonga, who is very likely might be the starter at nose tackle this year.
You know what? No lie. Right.
And then, like I said, the Avery kid out of Illinois we picked up as a UDFA. I think that kid
at least makes the practice squad.
I think he runs a pretty good chance of being the backup nose tackle. I do.
That depends. He's a guy that I'll be keeping an eye on in training camp and
we'll be talking about him in a couple of weeks here when we start getting into the UDFA guys. But it's like I said, we're 2 days into OTAs, so we don't. I don't want to get too overhyped and too much over the top on a lot of this stuff. But
seeing these draft guys come in and put in the work, and we can kind of watch them develop in front of our eyes.
Right. But to this point, everything that we had hoped we were getting with Flores through 2 days, it
Sounds
seems
to
like
be
that it's
inevitable.
being confirmed. And I'm more
Hey, we
excited.
still got Mike Pettin.
Oh God, yeah.
It was getting to the point where, like, oh my God, nobody wants to be DC here. Nobody wants to.
Well,
go here.
the whole thing with Flores, and I don't fault him for this, is he was kind of holding out for a head coaching job, and then that whole
I was about a week away from hitting the panic button, dude. Seriously, I was like, oh my God, we're gonna get stuck with some jokes off the street.
Pettin was always the break glass in case of emergency defensive coordinator. But
I would have been better. I would have been if Flores didn't end up here. I would have been happier if we went off, got somebody from the college ranks, like a Leinart or whatever,
Jim Leonard or whatever. Yeah.
Yep.
Or Brent. Yeah. No, but at
hope
least
Flores sticks around for a couple of years. I hope it's not a one and done type of deal.
But
it very well may be, and I can't.
But if it's a one and done, that means he made this defense. He turned his defense around enough to the point where and if we do that, if we can run a top 15 defense and the offense improves over last year, I mean, even last year's offense and a top 15 defense, we're the 2 seed. We don't have to worry about going through a lot of this stuff. And we're probably playing the NFC Championship game against the Eagles instead of the 49ers.
We were the 2 seed for a long time last year, towards the end of the year, and we just gave it up.
Yep.
So, and that was with the Horde defense.
Right.
So, anyways,
that
sounds about a good time to start wrapping shit up.
I think so, because I don't have much else to talk about. We've rambled enough on here so far, but again, I want to thank everybody for watching. We got a long weekend coming up, so if you guys are out at the lake, doing your celebrations, your cookouts on Memorial Day, first and foremost, let's all remember what the holiday signifies. Pay remembrance to those brave men and women who have given their lives in the line of duty for this country. We thank each and every one of you from the bottoms of our hearts for your sacrifices. We would not be able to do the stuff that we do here on a weekly basis, sitting on this podcast, talking smart about football and whatever else, without the sacrifices that these brave soldiers have given us. So thank you all from the bottoms of our hearts for those of you who paid the ultimate price, and let us all remember them on Memorial Day as we're out there, on the lakes, as we're out there barbecuing, as we're out there having fun and drinking beer and all this other good stuff that we get to do. Yes, absolutely. So my deepest gratitude and my thoughts to all of those brave men and women who have, again, sacrificed all for this country. Beyond that, if you're out doing all this stuff, you're boating, you're fishing, you're stuff like that, bring us with you, whether it's the YouTube channel, whether it's the audio cast, whether it's on Facebook, Twitter, all this other stuff. We're all over the place. If you have not done so, smash the hell out of that subscribe button. We're up over 2,000 subscribers now. We're on the push for 3,000. My goal is to be at 3,000 before the season's over with. So let's get us there. Again, thank you for all of you who join us every week on the live chat, whether it's with the studio show, whether it's on Rhino's Rants, all this other stuff, following Brunswick's Best on Wednesdays.
3 hours later.
Can you move it along? I'm all out of time cards.
We thank you guys, the OGs who have been there with us from the beginning. You guys, we appreciate this more than you will ever know. Thank you so much. And we promise we are going to continue to try to push the best Vikings content that we can come up with for you guys. And again, just thank you so much. But with that, why don't you take us home, Lance?
pretty long-winded right now. I'm gonna let it.
I know. I got on a bit of a rant there, but
we'll see y'all next Friday, and I hope you all enjoyed the show this week. SKOL.
All right. Have a good weekend, everybody.